Read all the stories about BYU sports no one else has heard. Go to KSLSports.com for exclusive columns by BYU insider Mitch Harper. That's KSLSports.com.
Bunch of content on KSLSports.com and also on the Cougar Tracks podcast, which airs every day here on KSL News Radio. You heard that earlier tonight at 6:30 p.m. You can check that out and on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts and this show. Just search First and 12. And you can subscribe to the show. Right now, Alex, it's time for First and 12 headlines.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shape this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
We talk about all the other teams in this Big 12 conference, and there's a lot of them to bring up, and there's a lot of crazy storylines from this week, but you cannot ignore the big dog right now. Texas Tech continues to dominate. They roll past Kansas. It was there was an early part, I think, where it was 17-14 maybe, that Kansas had and then Texas Tech was like settled down, and an absolute blowout it ended up being down there in Lubbock, 42-17. And Texas Tech has a slew of games still coming up. Most of them are going to be at home against the toughest rest of their schedule. So I'm telling you, this team has it all set up for Joey McGuire and his guys to be able to roll. Big win against Kansas, who saw a little bit of light at the beginning, and then they squashed it.
And Cameron Dickey, their running back, runs for 263 yards. Remember, before the season, we were talking about the injuries at that spot. They got a running back now going forward. Headline 2, Tech climbs to number 7 in the AP Top 25 poll. Highest ranking for the Red Raiders since 2008, the days of Michael Crabtree.
Did they get to
times.
2 at that
They
point?
did.
Yeah.
They got to 2 that season.
I remember it being so weird because you were like, there was a lot that had to happen for Tech to be able to get to 2. This is different, though, because that Tech team, I think if you look back, you'll go, man, those guys scored 48 points a game. And then you look on the other side and they go, man, those guys gave up 43.5 points a game. And that's a different deal now with this Texas Tech team. Headline 3, Utah. Speaking of teams you got to start paying attention to across the Big 12, they have re-earned the respect, I think, that had been lost me with that home loss against Texas Tech. They get their first win in conference play at Rice-Eccles Stadium in the Big 12, which is wild, but they do it in insane fashion. They absolutely blast Arizona State 42-10. Devin Dampier goes for 3 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah.
And 120 on the ground as well. And man, he had a day. And I think if you look at his throwing stat line, you're like, what was it, 7 for 11 for like 27 yards or whatever the low number was. You would not love that. Kyle Whittingham doesn't care. He goes, give me all those rushing yards in my veins, man.
Headline 4, Sam Levitt, Arizona State quarterback, was a surprise injury cut. Last week we're on the show, we're talking about Utah, Arizona State, and I was talking about Sam Levitt, and he ends up not playing. He was dealing with an injury that was suffered at Baylor. I got to think Sun Devils have zero chance of repeating without Levitt going forward. I mean, they were bad without Jeff Sims.
Headline number 5, Coach Prime and the Buffs shut this host right up because I was like, there's no way, after surgery during the week, after not being able to figure it out, one of their tougher teams coming in, and they've got to try to figure out how to beat Iowa State, and Coach Prime and his guys absolutely do it. They win over a top 25 team for the first time since his first game at CU when they beat TCU 2 seasons ago. They got that season started off with a bang, but man, it was a wild game, and I'm going to be honest, it's just as big of a deal that Iowa State is falling as Colorado winning that game.
And that's headline 6, the Cyclones on a 2-game losing streak. That trip to Ireland, that early season success, seems like a distant memory now as the Cyclones are going through it right now after losses to Cincinnati
2 in a row.
and Colorado. They're not playing well. They're on a bye this week. Next up is a home game for them against BYU on October 25th. That could easily be a 3rd straight loss potentially for the Cyclones. Headline 7, Kansas State maybe could be this year's Kansas. The Wildcats knocked off title hopes for TCU potentially. They won 41-28 in Manhattan. Maybe Kansas State has turned the corner. This season could be saved a bit potentially.
Well, if Coach Kleiman, if he gets going, it's a tough thing. You think about all the talent that roster already had. We knew who they had on that roster, and then we all scratched our heads going, what's going on? So when they turn it around and put 41 up on TCU and then don't allow TCU to outgun them, which I think in every one of these games you might think, I've been waiting for Josh Hoover to take off, and it hasn't really happened for TCU yet this year. That's what our headline 8 is. I don't know what to think about Sonny Dykes' squad. I don't know where they're at. I don't know how good they're. They've already lost 2 conference games. Iowa State's already lost 2 conference games. you count 2 lost teams out already, Mitch?
That's a great question because this might be the year where it feels like with what we saw this past weekend around the league, maybe this is the year where 3 losses could do it. I still think that BYU-Utah game is really going to tell us a lot this weekend as to, whether a 2-loss team could get there or not. But, TCU has squandered opportunities on the road to go into Manhattan, a place that they've always struggled. But to just lay an egg and give up all those turnovers and easy points to K-State, it's a real problem. That's headline 9. The TCU gave up 2 touchdowns to Kansas State's defense. Horned Frogs can't get it done on the road. They're 0-2 away from home in league play. Headline 10, Cincinnati took down UCF 20-11 despite being outgained in yards, 413 to 306. But they check into the national rankings for the first time since 2022.
Well-deserved. I think it was probably a week late, to be honest. That's a Cincinnati team that right now you're looking at and you're going, okay, put them in the conversation with Utah and BYU. Not necessarily. I don't think anybody's in the conversation with Texas Tech, but
no.
I think about who's at the top of the conference right now. There's always somebody in there who shouldn't be there, according to what our thoughts were at the beginning of the season. That's why we're not head coaches. Speaking of headline 11, Connor Wigman, clearing concussion protocol. He goes for 306 yards. And no interceptions. And, Oklahoma State gets downed again. And Houston, don't get shocked now.
5-1.
They're 5-1. I mean, it is Oklahoma State. But, hey, bounce back after losing to Texas Tech. If your one loss is to Texas Tech, are we supposed to put them in the same conversation with those same guys I just mentioned, Mitch?
Houston is pretty good. And again, I said a couple weeks ago, 9-3. I backed off a little bit of that because they got blown out by Texas Tech, but that's just what Texas Tech does to teams. And maybe Houston put up a better fight than others have this season. So Houston's playing some good football. And for Connor Wegman to be healthy after that injury scare in the game against Texas Tech, I think that was huge for Houston. And headline 12, maybe the only highlight of the season for Oklahoma State. Did you see this, Alex? One dude in the stands at empty Boone Pickens Stadium. He had an entire section to himself. He was just shirtless, waving his T-shirt around, and then hundreds of other dudes slowly over the course of the game joined him, went shirtless, and started spinning their shirts around. Awesome scene.
It was
guys
great.
rocks, dude.
It ended up being good because at first somebody on TV was like, "Well, this is the state of Oklahoma State football," and you're like, "No, this poor guy is out there,
guys being dudes."
Now, let me ask you this. Is it just what my mind put him as? Did he have a mullet? I assumed he did. Is that bad that I assumed he had a mullet out there?
He had some cheese fries at Eskimo Joe's, and then he cleaned up the mullet and went over to Boone Pickens. Yes.
There you go. So, at least, hey, you know what? Best storyline out of Oklahoma State from the past 3 weeks. So, you'll always have that. All right, we've got much more to go. We're going to hit the second half of the first hour here. We'll get into our sound roundup on 1st and 12 when we get you around the corner here. You'll hear from some of the coaches across the league and get you ready for the rest of this week, on top of a little bit of a recap from the coaches from the past week. So stay here. More to go. It is 1st and 12 right here on KSL News Radio.